terrorism. Terrorism. It's a noun. It's defined as the unlawful use or threatened use of force or violence by a person or an organized group against people or property with the intention of intimidating or coercing societies or governments, often for ideological or political reasons. Terrorism. Interesting. More on that later. An interesting item in the news, and this is kind of, file it in your A to Z file, just something to be aware of. It seems a guy in New Jersey published on his Facebook page a picture of his 11-year-old son proudly showing off his 11th birthday present, a .22 caliber rifle. I mean, to many of us, particularly those of us in the South, now I'm not sure how they do things in New Jersey. I understand that a little north of the Mason-Dixon line, folks are a little bit weird. But, here in the South, an 11-year-old boy getting his first .22, what took him so long? I mean, here, pretty much as soon as they're out of diapers, But that aside, it appears some unnamed anonymous source saw this picture on this fellow's Facebook page of his son proudly holding his very first .22 caliber rifle and reported it to the police and social services. So this guy is carrying on his normal business day, gets a call from his wife saying, "Hey, the cops are here along with Child Protective Services. They want to search the house. They want to see your guns. They want to this and that and the other." The guy says, "I'll be right there." So the guy shows up. He's got his lawyer on the cell phone. And he says, "Okay, first of all, let me see your warrant." Well, they got no warrant. Well, let me see the complaint. They got no complaint. They're just attempting to intimidate him. Threaten use of force or violence. Yeah, they're talking about taking away his kids. They're talking about, confiscating his weapons. Terrorism. Threatened use of force or... Needless to say, this guy was sharp enough to stand his ground. And he basically said, "Y'all are not seeing my weapons. I'm not opening my gun safe. You're not coming into my house. You come back with a warrant. We'll talk about it. But for now, you're out of here. If you don't get off my property, you are trespassing." They left, and nothing more so far has been heard about this. Now, I bring this up because before there was a Facebook, I was a Boy Scout dad, and I was dealing with boys who were, 11, 12, 13, up to about, 17 years old. And one of our favorite outings was to go to a place where, we could train the boys how to handle firearms. This was not an unusual occasion. We always got mom and dad's permission. We would say, "Hey, on this particular outing, the boys are going to fire, 22s, they're going to fire shotguns, they're going to fire whatever we were going to fire that week." And, I was always the range master. I was the shotgun and .22 caliber merit badge coordinator. I was the guy who had to sign off that, yeah, they actually hit what they shot at. Okay, so they could get their merit badge for this activity. Now, firearms training of young people has been an American tradition for a couple of hundred years in this quest for this political correct society that we're engaged in, all of a sudden, long-standing traditions are being cast aside. Now, I look at the adults out there who are gun owners. Not only is it your right, but it is your responsibility to train any youngsters in your household how to properly handle those firearms. You don't want them finding those firearms and not knowing how to deal with them. You want them to know that they are dangerous tools that, if used improperly, can cause injury or even death. So yes, if you're going to keep firearms, it's your responsibility to teach your youngsters how to properly handle them. And to those of you out there who don't understand that, get a life. I'm sorry, just get a life and get over it. This fella here, named Aaron Swartz, he was kind of an internet icon. There's a couple very popular internet services that this guy was directly responsible for. If you use an RSS service, basically a news feed, or if you use a very popular news aggregation service called Reddit, this is the man who was responsible for making those services available to you. Aaron Swartz committed suicide recently by hanging. Now, his friends say he was driven to commit suicide because he was hounded by law enforcement, statute enforcement. He broke no laws. Apparently he broke some statutes pertaining to security. Apparently, this fellow was on a crusade to keep the internet free of censorship and government interference. And basically, he wanted to show documents that big business and government were colluding to clamp down on the internet and censor content. Okay? And for his efforts, he was hounded, threatened with a lifetime in a 6x9 with a roommate named Bubba for pursuing his activities. Aaron Swartz, dead by suicide. Now I'd like you to meet another fella named Barrett Brown. Now, this fella's still alive, but there are some out there who would prefer otherwise. Now, this fella Barrett Brown is kind of like, the unofficial spokesperson for an organization that many out there know as Anonymous. So if you will, he has put a face on the group Anonymous. Now, he claims no affiliation with Anonymous. He claims no leadership role in Anonymous. What he does claim is he claims empathy for their situation, empathy for their point of view. And he has attempted to put a face on that point of view. And he's been interviewed by a number. I think this snapshot here is from Russia Today. He's become something of an unofficial spokesperson for Anonymous. Anonymous, as many of you might know, is a group that some say is organized, some say is totally disorganized, some say is totally decentralized purposely. But these people pursue internet freedom, the freedom to exchange information via the internet. Now, one thing, kind of a unintended consequence of the internet. I mean, frankly, if the powers that be could keep the internet a place where people do business, and the only time you get on your computer is when you got your credit card in your hand and you're getting ready to do some business, everything would be handy, everything would be great. The problem with the internet, from the point of view of government and those who currently pull the strings of government, is that there's a little bit too much informing going on out there. I mean, like, you take, for example, this recent thing where Syria was accused of using chemical weapons against people that, from their point of view, were unlawfully using threats or force of violence. What we would call terrorists, but, from our point of view, the guys who Syria supposedly used the chemical weapons against were freedom fighters from our point of view. From Syria's point of view, they were terrorists. But that's neither here nor there. What it came down to is that it wasn't Syria that used the chemical weapons. It was indeed the rebels fighting Syrian forces. And the chemical weapons that were used were more than likely provided them by our friends in the UK. Now, that aside, the reason that information got out there very quickly was because of the internet. Without the internet, this could have very easily have been manipulated into a arm-twisting story. Oh, those evil Syrians, they used chemical weapons against these good freedom fighters who are, for God, country, apple pie, and the girl we left behind. And, oh, those evil Syrians, we're going to have to go bomb the crap out of them. Okay? That was what was planned. But, gee, there'd just be a little bit too much informing going on with that there internet, and the story got ruined. What we're seeing is a cloud coming in over the internet. Fellows like this guy Barrett Brown are being investigated, and they're looking at this guy came into some data recently that was very incriminating against some banking and government interests. Now, it just so happened that the raw data that this fella came into possession of included credit card numbers. Now, he wasn't the least bit interested in the credit card numbers. What he was doing is he was trying to correlate the data and show collusion between government and business. But because he had this data, and because it had these credit card numbers, he's now basically they're building a bogus case against this guy to make his life miserable and to shut him up, because there'd just be a little bit too much informing going on that there internet, and this guy's made a target of himself because he has indeed become the unofficial spokesperson for the group known as Anonymous. Now we have to wonder if we're going to find Mr. Barrett Brown hung by suicide or falling down an elevator shaft onto 20 or 30 .40 caliber Smith & Wesson. Let's hope not, because you know what? Yeah, that's bullshit. But that's how they play the game. Looking at the time, it's 48 minutes into the hour, and I really don't want to steal too much time from Zero. I did have one more item that I'd hoped to cover, but I think, considering, here's the deal. I'm going to rush through this. Okay, I'm not going to give this the depth and detail that I had hoped for. We're just going to move through it very quickly. War. What do we go to war for? We go to war for patriotism. We go to war for God. We go to war for country. No. What we go to war for is money. Okay? Right now, we're sitting at about, 1933, 1936. Okay? We've got us a depression going on. An economic depression. All right? The first thing that happens when nations start finding themselves in a state of economic depression is they start a currency war. Okay? Now, right now, because our system is in a bad way, the European system is in a bad way, even the Chinese system, who they were kind of up and coming there for the longest time. Everybody thought the Chinese were kind of immune from this, but even the Chinese economy is on the rocks. What we are seeing right now is we are seeing a currency war going on to see who can devalue their currency the fastest. Okay? Now, what does devaluation of the currency mean to you? That means that everything you buy is going to get more expensive. It's called inflation. It is a hidden tax that everyone who buys anything will have to pay. Whether you're buying a loaf of bread, a dozen eggs, or a jug of milk, or some gasoline to put in your car, the price of everything is going up because of currency wars. Now, currency wars don't last for very long. Last time around, currency wars only lasted for about 5-6 years. And then we got into what was called a trade war, where all of a sudden everybody starts putting up tariffs. Okay? We say, all that stuff from China has gotten so damned expensive. Let's make it more expensive by putting a tax on anything that comes in from China. All that food that we're getting from South America, let's put a tax on that. Because, it's already getting pretty expensive. Let's make it even more expensive by taxing the daylights out of it. So now you're into a trade war. Trade wars always degenerate into shooting wars. And I'm telling you, if it keeps going on the path that's going right now, we're going to be at 1939 before you can say boo. Okay? It's coming. Start saying no now. It's time to say no. I'm not going to go to war. You're not going to spend my blood and treasure on a banker's war. Let the damn banks fail. We'll pick up the pieces, decide later how we're going to put it back together. But I would rather see the banking industry go down than entire nations. And that's it for Scarecrow's News Rant. I kind of rushed that last piece because I don't want to steal any more time from my feature presenter for the evening.